This is Robert Reagan, and I'm about to read a really twisted story I wrote a long time ago called Mannequin Legs. Um, been showing off my kittens today, and now I have to show off my little buddy here. He's actually my mom's dog, but he's just so precious. And I absolutely love animals and wish people could be that good. Anyway, this story is extremely fucked up and twisted, and if you're not into that type of thing, not for you. The story itself is about a perverted man with really twisted fetishes. That's basically the way to sum it up. Okay, anyway, enough talking. This is Mannequin Legs. Miles Maddox was a little off, a brilliant visual artist. His style was very diverse. He could draw the most evil, gory things you could never begin to imagine. Still, he drew landscapes of meadows with green grass, colorful flowers and butterflies, all under an intense blue sky. He could draw mountains, deserts, anything. Still, Miles was a little off. A lot off, actually. Once he was arrested for lurking around inside Victoria's Secret, spying on young women shopping for lingerie. In jail, he drew pictures of naked women so vivid his fellow inmates bought them to hang on his wall and jerk off to. The guards confiscated them all except the ones drawn on the cell walls. When Miles was released, he tried to silence the deviant sexual voice in his head. He tried not to imagine the dead and the blood. Miles only drew those pretty pictures until he was bored and stopped drawing altogether. Miles still went out to the mall. He wasn't allowed back inside Victoria's Secret, but he could still go to other stores. He was inside some fancy dress shop when he met the woman of his dreams. She had dark red hair, a short purple dress made of silk. Most important to Miles, this woman was wearing stockings, black stockings. Miles always had these strange fetishes, but out of all of them, he loved nylon pantyhose and stockings, especially the black ones. Miles pictured himself sliding his hand up the woman's nylon leg all the way up her purple dress. She wouldn't say a word. She was different. All the other females shuddered if Miles even got close, but this woman would let him do anything. In reality, it made her nothing but a cock tease. How would Miles look standing in the middle of a dress shop, fondling and rubbing the legs of a mannequin? Not much different than he looked just standing there staring at it when the manager approached him. "Did you want to buy this dress?" the manager asked. "Perhaps for your wife or yourself?" Miles just walked away, ashamed that he'd been caught staring at the mannequin. He saw a lot of attractive females that day, but he didn't have a chance with any of them. If he could only rescue her from that boring dress store. That sexy mannequin would let Miles do anything he pleased. Well, maybe not everything. It was a mannequin, not a lifelike sex doll. But a doll didn't have the shapely legs that the mannequin had. Miles was infatuated in love. It was a tragic love. The mannequin girl and Miles were Romeo and Juliet, lovers forbidden to be together. Miles was going to kill himself, but then he realized his star-crossed lover would only remain in the mall until she got tossed out. Miles moved on with his life, becoming a voyeur. Peeping in the windows of young women, he got a new job in the daytime. Once again coming into contact with mannequins. Miles was hired to clean up and organize an old warehouse of antiques. The owner had all kinds of mannequins, but none of them were the kind Miles wanted to fornicate with. They were all scary, morbid mannequins. One in particular was his bald Uncle Fester. Miles loved horror movies and everything scary, but this one freaked him out for some reason. One day Miles was looking underneath an old workbench for some tools when he found half the perfect woman he'd always wanted. Lying underneath the workbench was a sexy pair of mannequin legs. Women's wooden legs, just like the redhead in the dress store in the mall. Miles became excited. Those legs could be his forever. He could put fishnets and stockings of any color on them. He pictured it all. That night he would go to Walmart and buy a pair of black stockings. They were for his wife, he'd say to the cashier ringing them up. Before all this, he had to steal them. That was the hard part. Miles waited until his boss was gone. Then he picked up the legs, taking them out the back exit. They were covered from waist to toe with dust and dirt. Miles thought of how much fun it would be to wash them, cleaning them off nicely before sliding the stockings on them. He stashed them in the woods, planning to come back and retrieve them later on that night. But that night, Miles left those legs forsaken and alone in the forest. They could have run, but they could have never seen where they were going. When Miles got home, he noticed his next-door neighbor standing nude, cooking in the kitchen. The other neighbors never noticed, but of course they weren't scanning the neighborhood with a telescope. This is how he spent his evening, watching through the open blinds covering her bedroom window as she had sex with her boyfriend. Not with the telescope, but right outside her window. The next day, Miles went to work. His boss wouldn't say anything to him for half the day. He would just look at Miles and laugh. They were in the break room when his boss finally asked, "So what were you doing with the mannequin legs?" Miles acted dumb, asking his boss what he was talking about. "You know exactly what I'm talking about," his boss said. "I've got a tape to remind you if you don't." Miles never offered any explanation. He returned the legs and left the warehouse devastated, knowing his boss would tell everyone in their small town about the incident. No one caught him in the act of doing anything, but how do you explain stealing a pair of mannequin legs? It had to be something perverted. Just as he expected, his former boss told everyone, even showing the tape to some people. When in the past he got out of jail, Miles' family forgave him for stalking women in the mall. It was just his demons, his mother said. Miles was supposed to be reformed after that. He was successful as a peeping Tom, doing it all unnoticed. Yet here he was, the laughingstock of town, and disowned by his parents over a pair of mannequin legs. It was as if he was some disease. Still, it was this despair that brought back his creativity. Miles lay in bed and started to sketch. He drew and drew and drew. Only this time everything was deathly and morbid. After a while, he joined an art class in the city. For the first time, he got to draw a nude model, until he got kicked out because of the restraining order she took out against him. He was only trying to do homework. She just didn't understand. After a while, he joined another art class with artists who did more twisted type of work. The teacher said, "Draw what scares you the most." All kinds of spiders, snakes, demons, and devils made it to paper. But Miles' paper was a brilliant sketch of a scary-looking Uncle Fester mannequin. Standing next to it was a sexy pair of mannequin legs clad in pink stockings. Everyone explained their phobia in the drawings. Of course, Miles set out the conversation. His art school friends in the city weren't aware of the perverted incident in the small town that served as his inspiration. Miles wanted to keep it that way. One night around this time, Miles had a terrible nightmare. He was in the woods running. It became unclear if he was the predator or the prey. But then up ahead, he finally realized he was chasing the pair of mannequin legs. They ran forever before Miles followed them inside an old abandoned house. Once inside, they ran directly to the rest of themselves. There on the table, staring at Miles, was the upper half of the mannequin. It was female but bald with lifelike features and a voice saying, "I know what you were going to do with my legs." His voice getting louder, it said, "If my legs were attached to me, I'd kick your ass." After that, Miles woke up shaking. Only reality continues the nightmare, as the evil old Uncle Fester mannequin was standing above Miles' bed. It had to be his boss fucking with him. It was the only logical explanation. Until Miles found his dream mannequin from the dress store sitting on the couch in the living room. Miles didn't want anything to do with her anymore. He wanted her and Uncle Fester gone. He took them to the woods, dousing them with gasoline. They both sit there so still and sinister, their evil eyes staring Miles down until he lit the match. Upon catching fire, the mannequins jumped up like they were alive the whole time. They both ran around wildly, then stopped, dropped, and rolled around on the ground before getting up and taking off through the woods, still on fire. Miles heard a loud splash and figured they jumped in a nearby lake. He never went to check out what happened. It's a story in his life that he just can't figure out. He tried to tell people what happened, but after the Legs incident, no one would listen to him. Everyone knew that Miles Maddox was a little off. Thank you.